Hello there. Welcome to AV Rant. This is the behind the scenes broadcast. In case you couldn't tell by the green screen showing up next to me, that's not how fully completed videos usually look. And there are fully completed videos that I usually post on Wednesday. So if you notice that there are audio dropouts, that's just because we're on Google Hangouts. Our video is going to look like this with the green screen over here and Tom over here sitting off to his side. That's how we put it together later. Hello, Tom. Yeah, so if you want all that stuff cleared up and you want to be able to see the images that we're referencing and talking about and stuff, look for the completed 2-hour video version. It might be less than 2 hours, but completed video version. Usually posts on Wednesday. That's what you want to look for. So, yeah, with that all cleared up, let's switch over to Tom, and he can start the podcast.
I've never seen that icon before. What is that? Oh, OBS has an icon. I know that. All right.
Oh.
1 minute 34 seconds. Okay. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And yes, we are recording on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This is going to be our regular time for the foreseeable future. So, oh, okay. Oh, there you go. All right.
I could go
this
a little
week.
Earlier than one. I could go earlier than one. I could maybe earlier than one would be okay with me. One's kind of in the middle of the day. I would like to maybe do it earlier than one.
All right.
Regular. But we'll discuss that at a later date. Somebody was just asking today whether or not we were going to do the hangout still at 11 o'clock at night Eastern time. And the answer to that question is, oh, no, sir, we are not.
Definitely not at the 11 o'clock Eastern time thing. That's not happening for now. No.
I guess we could maybe do like a Patreon hangout, like
sure,
once in a while or something like that. We could do that.
I'd be down.
Yeah.
Other podcasts do that.
Someone should figure out, coordinate that.
Things are a-changing around here, but although not very much. And especially if you're listening to the audio-only version, really nothing is changing for you.
Nothing is changing at all. Speaking of audio, did you get the Jurassic Park box set?
Well, I got it, but I decided to gift it to my dad for Father's Day. So yeah.
So when are you going to borrow the disc?
I'll borrow it at some point to hear the DTS X.
Well, I'm giving my review.
Okay. I wasn't even sure if you were going to watch it. So
I did. I got it Sunday, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's the limited edition 4K Ultra HD block.
Yes.
You know, doesn't even have a Blu-ray version. It's nothing but the...
Oh, does it not? I didn't even notice that. The special features are on Blu-ray discs.
Special features are on Blu-rays, but the other ones are all 4K Ultra HDs. So, which is fine. Wow. Okay, so first of all, this is by far the best movie. This is the first Jurassic Park. I haven't seen the rest of them yet because there's 4 movies in there. I'm not going to watch. I might watch the middle 2, but I'll probably watch whatever the last one is called. I can't remember.
Jurassic World.
That's the one. I'll watch that one probably sometime this week. But you could watch the first opening scene with the Velociraptor cage. They're trying to get the Velociraptor in there, and it's like suddenly you have a great Atmos demo.
Okay.
It literally puts you in the, like when the camera is in the cage looking out, the sound of the Velociraptor is behind and above you.
Right.
And the people sounds are in front of you. I mean, it is all around you, and there's lots of deep bass, and it's very loud and everything else. Surround effects are amazing. Now, this is all DTSX, so
it is.
Who knows what's going to happen in the future with all that mess that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
But wow, finally, like I recalibrated not once, twice, I think maybe 3 times last night because stupid Odyssey Editor app won't download the curve that you already set up. Like I click on it and it makes me take a new measurement. I could not get it to just say what's there. It was like, oh, you have a new receiver. Let's go ahead and.
Well, my receiver's too old. I can't use the Odyssey Editor app, so I'm not sure.
So I think it's fine, but it was the app was weird. Like I was using it in the home theater to get everything set up, and then I went to the computer, which is probably 15 feet away through a wall. Yeah. With that wall may or may not be concrete block, cinder block. At least part of it is. The rest of it's not. And it kept saying it was losing connection to the receiver.
But it's not even a direct connect. I thought it was through your network, isn't
That's
it?
what I
both
thought too. So I
connect to
was
the same
very
Wi-Fi
confused.
router?
I know. So I ended up leaving the phone right outside the door. And I kept having to walk back and forth because that was the only way. Every time I brought it to the computer, it stopped working. It just may have been a fluke. All right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it. But the inability to download the curve you currently had and you had to take a new measurement was irksome because I had just recalibrated and then maybe recalibrate again. So it was fine. So I don't know if the recalibration did that much. I do have, and you and I will talk about this afterwards, but I do have a really weird dip. And not only is it a dip in the measurements, but the curve they're going for is not a hump to kind of fix it.
Oh,
It's like the curve is also a dip. I was trying to adjust the curve, and it's not that fine of control.
Whereabouts, though?
It doesn't have numbers on it. So I would say upper mid-range, like between the crossover and the mid-range and the tweeter, maybe.
Okay, yeah, because that Odyssey by default includes, they have a thing at 2 kilohertz, a little notch.
That sounds exactly right. Yeah.
They have a little notch at 2 kilohertz intentionally. That's part of the Odyssey, even in the flat target curve that's included.
And that's what confused me because I switched it to flat and I'm like, dude, what's this little...
No, that's one of the things people used to try and get rid of with Odyssey Pro, and now you do have the option with the Odyssey Editor app to tell it to just not correct above a certain range. But by default, that is the target curve. It has a notch at 2 kilohertz.
I was pretty amazed at how all over the place my measurements were before Odyssey versus after. But okay, back to the movie, because first of all, Jurassic Park, the movie.
Yes.
I used to make fun of this movie because of that one table scene, where they're all sitting around the table. It's like, who can be can say the most serious, scary thing out of everybody? At first it's Malcolm with his, life will find a way. And then it's the girl with the, we have no idea what's going out there. And then it's the guy with whatever. And I'm like, dude, everybody trying that out serious. Watching this movie makes me realize how good of a director Steven Spielberg is, because his directing makes it so that you're like, what this person's saying is very important and very true. Right. And then you think about it, you go, that is like no human on that entire movie ever made any sense about anything whatsoever. Like none of it makes any sense at all. Like just monumentally stupid things. Like the lawyer is the only person who is clearly the bad guy and he gets eaten first. The only person that's making any sense in this movie has not aged well as far as I've aged. And I look back and I'm going, you people are stupid and deserve to get eaten. But the sound in that movie is phenomenal. It is so good.
That was the main thing. That was what we were looking to find out.
If you are looking for a demo disc,
okay.
I mean, if you could buy the whole set, and if you just watch the first couple of minutes of that movie, you're like, okay, I got my money's worth.
You'll understand that immersive audio is capable of being
all
a thing.
Over you. It is. You are inside that cage. It's insane. So very good. All right.
Nice.
This is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can go to www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast. YouTube.com/AVRant. You can contact us directly. Rob at AVRant.com. His Twitter is @FirstReflect. I'm Tom at AVRant.com. My Twitter is @AVRant_Tom. That wasn't one breath, but it kind of felt like it. All right.
Yeah, so, pretty good.
Let's
pretty smooth.
That was pretty smooth. It's been a while. So we're going to start by thanking our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, you need to support the podcast in some way. One way you can do that is by going to www.avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, which will take you to a PayPal donation site. You can use your credit card or your PayPal account to send us money. And if you do, we will mention you on this podcast. So we want to thank Zachary for his donation this week. Your donation will go into our coffers to help us pay for things like
Thank you, Zachary. We appreciate the donation.
We also want to thank our 61 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon is a service where you sign up for a monthly subscription, if you will, to our podcast, which will monthly take out whatever amount of money you deem that we are worth per month. So anywhere from $1 up to infinity. So we want to thank our 61 patrons.
Yeah, that is patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up. And thank you very much to our 61 patrons.
I'm smack dab in the middle of coffee number 2. Can you tell? So if you can't support the podcast financially, or if you just don't want to, that's fine. But if you would like to support us in some other way, just let us know what it is. Nathan told Power Sound Audio that he heard about them from us. He's very happy that we mentioned them because he was having trouble getting a hold of a replacement calibration microphone for his anti-mode automatic bass EQ system. Have we ever talked about that thing? Because I don't know what that is.
Anti-mode has come up once or twice, but not for a long time.
Right. Yeah.
And
so it was automatic. It was automatic. How you just plug it in, it does its thing.
It is, yeah. So actually, I might mention the Velodyne SMS1 coming up later in the podcast. That was another system which is no longer available.
Right.
But there was that SVS had an Odyssey-based one, didn't they? At some point, was that SVS or?
It was SVS. They did have an Odyssey one. I don't know that it had multiple microphones though. I
thought that one just had the one. But there were a few of these outboard automatic bass equalization systems. Anti-mode was one of them, and it still exists, but it's not really readily available in the U.S. except through Power Sound Audio.
There you go. It turns out Power Sound Audio is an authorized importer for anti-mode products, and they hooked them up fast and at a great price with great service. So thank you, Nathan.
Yeah,
Jason
good to hear.
Got his user review for his SVS PC2000 posted on SVS's website. It's dated 6/12/18. If you'd like to look for it, though, you could just come to the website and we will link it up. And he gave AVRant a very nice shout out about this. I guess I didn't read it. So what is it?
Yeah, that was in the review there. We were prominently mentioned. So thank you, Jason.
Chris, we also want to thank, who is offering one of our lucky listeners an Insteon Hub giveaway. So Insteon Hub is a home automation majigger box thing, and I've got some people who are interested. So I will be. It is more than 2 and less than 20, but so far, so your odds are looking real good.
Good odds so far, and I didn't see any entries for that come in at the question at AVRant website. So everyone has been listening to the very convoluted and confused instructions that we gave out last week that we figured out on the fly.
Yeah. So the instructions are: if you want it, send me an email at tom@avrant.com with your reason for wanting it.
There you go. And you want to email Tom directly at his email address. Everyone who has entered so far did just that, so that's good to know.
All right, in the news, if you want a measurement microphone specifically designed for headphones and earphones, well, Mini DSP now offers their ears dummy head, which resembles, I mean, it looks like a pair of ears on a stand. So
it looks like the type of stand that you would hang a pair of headphones on when not in use, except that a little lower down and on either side, there's some plastic ears just sitting there.
Anyways, that's $200 if you want that. If you want to measure your headphones. Right. Which Odeon Cinema Group in the UK has announced their partnership with Dolby to bring 7 Dolby cinemas with Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos and reclining seats to 7 as of yet unannounced locations. These will be the first Dolby cinemas in the UK. I mean, we have those here because I think I've got one like around the corner.
You've got quite a few in the United States, but by far more than any other country.
All right. I've never been in that one because it's real expensive. But the date for when they'll open hasn't been announced yet. Germany will also be getting their first Dolby Cinema in late 2018 in Munich. And I figured that's where they'd put it because, Hamburg is like the only other town I could think of. Hamburg. Is there? That's it. All right. Joining the Spain, Netherlands, and Austria as the only countries outside the United States and China with Dolby. You don't have any?
Canada has none.
Oh my!
Nope, I'd have to drive down to Washington State.
That doesn't seem fair. All right. Anyway,
I know. I want us to get some. China has the second most to the United States, although still far fewer. But United States and China was it, and now we got Spain, Netherlands, Austria, and coming up UK and Germany. So that's good.
All right, we've got some comments here from our listeners. Joseph on Twitter, after our talk last week about wanting to delay a 12-volt trigger signal, Joseph suggested a little $17 12-volt timer delay circuit. There are full instructions on the manufacturer's website, along with helpful YouTube tutorials showing how you connect it and program it. It's mostly used for car applications, but it's a standard 12-volt circuit, so there's no reason it couldn't be used for a 12-volt trigger for an audio amplifier. So $17. There we go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a very small. I mean, it's just a little circuit. They show it here next to a Well, that's a dime. I thought that was a quarter at first. It's even smaller than I thought. Showing
That's
it next
small.
to it.
How do they even put the port in there?
Well, there is no port, so there are just some bare wires coming out of the thing.
Oh,
so
okay, yeah.
if you are connecting this to a regular mono, 3.5 millimeter jack, you're going to have to snip that off and probably use a butt splice to put the wires together. You'll need two of them, one going in and one coming back out. But so normally this is used in cars for like things like setting the delay on when your little overhead lamp in your car will go out or come on and things like that. But
I guess that makes sense. Sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
or your
device had to exist. I mean,
Yes.
it had to.
Yeah, your daytime running lamps or whatever, they stay on a little bit after your car turns off, so that's just a delay. So it's a little circuit like this that's being used. So yeah, there is no reason why you wouldn't be able to, just majigger that into your system to add a 12-volt delay to your audio amplifier.
Yeah, you know what someone should do is buy that for $17,
Yeah.
put an enclosure around it, and sell
That's
it for $50.
Some people will buy for sure.
That is a money-making opportunity, right? The $49.95. You can sell it on best.
But I did want to mention to Just Jay from last week, who was asking about this. It occurred to me later on, and actually we had mentioned it in a previous episode long ago, but I don't know why I didn't think of it again, which was that I'm not sure if he's making use of his Zone 2 right now.
Right.
But very often you can set it so that when you turn on Zone 2, it sends out a 12-volt trigger. That's usually an option when you have a Zone 2 output on a higher end receiver.
Delay on Zone 2 and then have the...
Yeah, so don't have any speakers connected to Zone 2,
Sure.
Because you would actually need to, because if you turned it on and then turned it back off, that would send the 12-volt trigger to turn it off again. So that wouldn't do the trick, but you could set it so that in your Harmony remote or whatever, that there's a delay and then it turns on Zone 2 after the receiver has fully booted up, and that would send out the 12-volt trigger to your audio amplifier, and then just do the reverse when you're turning things off, turn off Zone 2, and it'll turn your amplifier back off. So if you're already using Zone 2 for something, of course that won't work, but that was another thought.
Yeah. Carl, for anyone who'd like more information about the THX Deep Note after the recent public release of its original hand-drawn sheet music, Carl shared a podcast episode from 20,000 Hertz. There's a lot of audio podcasts out there where they talk all about its creator, Dr. Andy Moore. So you can go listen to that. I have no problems plugging other people's podcasts because I don't really care.
Certainly not. What wasn't my favorite format for the way they did their podcast, but hey, that's just one man's opinion. Well, it sounded very much like they were trying to be a half-hour documentary, but in audio form, and they took commercial breaks, and it just came across a little bit strange to me.
Okay,
but whatever.
The
information was cool, and the thing I didn't know at all about the THX Deep Note that I learned from this podcast is that it was basically that he created a program, because it was all synthesized notes, and he created a program to do the whole, moving around, changing that thing.
Yeah.
But it was generated randomly. So the thing that we're hearing, literally only existed once. It's like every time he ran the thing, it gave a slightly different result.
And he just picked the one he liked the best?
It was actually the first one, because that's the one they took and showed to George Lucas, and they're like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And then, they couldn't ever replicate it.
So wait, it's hand-drawn sheet music because no one knows exactly what happened?
Yeah, it's not defined. It's random.
That's why there's just lines. That's why there's
just lines. That's right.
So they recorded this thing one time.
Yeah, I mean, he recorded it multiple times, but they literally just used the first take that was ever recorded.
That's crazy.
That's cool.
All right, David just wanted to confirm that the Asus BW16D1HT internal 4K Blu-ray drive is the one to purchase if you want to back up Ultra HD Blu-rays using Make MKV. Can you just say yes to that so I can go with this question? Anyways, he made the mistake of buying the external USB version at first. When it didn't work, he opened up the case and discovered that's actually a Pioneer drive inside. So there you go. Who knew? One that cannot read BDXLs or Ultra HD Blu-ray discs. So that's why the model doesn't work. He doesn't have an available internal 5.25, anyway, a 5.25 inch drive bay in his computer case, but he simply put the BW16D1HT in an external USB enclosure, and it works great. So There you go. You can take the internal drive, put it in an external box connected by USB, and it's fine.
Yes. Yeah, it is odd that the model number that looks like it's just the external version is not even a drive made by Asus, but okay. Yeah. Guess that's what they do.
All right, Chris, unfortunately, has a bad experience to share with us. I hope not. He decided to go with a Screen Innovations Black Diamond projection screen. That's not what I have, is it? Is that what I have?
No, definitely not. No, that is a ambient light rejecting screen, is the Black Diamond from Screen Innovations. Yeah.
Once it was all set up, he noticed a mark in the middle of the screen that he only notices during bright scenes, but it's still a distracting imperfection nonetheless. He called Screen Innovations. They first said they never heard of such a thing, and then after some back and forth, they said there's no defect, nothing they can do about it, and no sort of exchange, servicing, or refund was offered. Given the very high price of the screen, Chris was expecting a lot better service and performance than that, so he's sharing his rant. Dude, don't get me started on bad service today, okay? So I bought a phone for my son, who I'm trying to find the name of the stupid company because I've got it open here. I bought a phone for my son, and it was here it is right here, from a company called Tech Venture. I have already bought a phone from Tech Venture before. They're unlocked phones, because that's all I use. I just buy phones outright. So I bought an unlocked Nexus 5, not 5X, 5, for my son. And it's a little old, and it's a little slow, and it's a little crappy. And it was okay because it's not my phone, and I'll deal with it. Well, my other son's phone self-destructed, and he wanted a new phone. And that phone that I got, the 5 that I got for my son, which worked just fine, but it's just slow and crappy, was no longer available. It was $100 at the time. So I got a Nexus 6 for him, which was $150, $160, which is not a little bit more, but not that much more. So I got that for him. Well, he went away and blah, 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 blah. I turned it on, and it was locked to AT&T, and I use T-Mobile. So I tried to unlock it, and I couldn't unlock it. So I went to the AT&T store. They're like, we can't unlock it. You got to do it online. So I called the company, and they're like, oh, we just unlocked it for you. I'm like, no, you didn't. Like, oh, no, we did. Next time it'll be unlocked. I'm like, no, it won't. They're like, yeah, it will. I'm like, no, it won't.
That seems highly unlikely.
If AT&T can't do it, how come you can do it? It just seems stupid. So of course, it wasn't unlocked. So I just returned the thing. I had to pay return shipping, which kind of sucked. But then I ordered 2 more of Nexus 6s from them because there's no place else to order them. They're literally the only game on Amazon that I could find. So I ordered 2 more from them, and those 2 were fine. So it's just sort of like this, the CSRs, the customer service representatives that you talk to. I think their job is just to get you off the phone.
That seems to be the case in a lot of situations.
It's like stall until the person gets frustrated and hangs up on you. I mean, I think that's their instructions. So I feel you, Chris. I do. I mean, there's absolutely no reason. What is? I would love to know what this imperfection is. A mark.
Yeah. Because when he said a mark, I'm not. I don't know if it's a dark mark or a bright mark. I mean, he said it only really shows up in bright scenes, so I'm thinking maybe it's a bright mark, which is like not a defect. That's kind of what that screen does. It hotspots that screen for sure. Yeah. It has I know they say it's only a 1.4 gain, but the way it does the ambient light rejecting, it was a bunch of coatings and layers and all kinds of stuff. And very often you'll get sparkles on it. You'll see, if you shift.
I don't like those screens.
I know. I'm not a big fan of the Black Diamond, and it's a very expensive screen. If you were looking for an ambient rejecting screen, I'd point you to the Loon Visions. I like that one better. The one that Seymour sells works, but has really narrow viewing angle.
I mean, when I say that's one of the reasons I like those screens, I didn't mean Black Diamond screen or whatever it is. I mean, I don't like ambient light rejection screens
in general.
I just rather have it be washed out than have hot spotting during other times. So we don't know what the issue was, and we're certainly not blaming the victim here, if that's what you want to call this.
Well, so, no, I mean a little bit something better than this, than like, nothing we can do about it. Bye.
Well, and I remember. Not to give Best Buy love, because I don't want to do that. A long time ago, I bought a DVD player. When DVDs were brand new, I bought an expensive one. It was like a JVC. This was way before Audioholics and all this stuff. And it would pause halfway through the disc and before it went to the new scene.
Is that the layer switch?
Yes, except that literally nobody knew what it was.
Okay.
So I kept returning it and getting new ones.
Oh. The early DVD players just did that. They took a second on that layer switch from layer 1 to layer 2.
I would talk to the salespeople. They're like, oh, never heard of this.
Right.
No one's ever complained about it before. I'm like, it's driving me crazy. My wife, she was so mad. She was so aggravated. Who cares? It's 1 second delay. It's a big deal. I'm like, it breaks the flow of immersion. I am taken out of it. And so I ended up returning it, and eventually buying something cheaper that also did it. And it's just so stupid. It's just so stupid. But they did at least not give me a hard time about returning it. All right, we got to get going here. Heath wrote back to say that so far his latest SVS amplifiers, the third and fourth ones, haven't failed on him yet, but he's still paranoid to answer some of the things we wondered about. This is a guy whose amps keep blowing. And his neighbors,
like
too.
every couple of weeks, yeah.
He did say that dual SB 4000s are overkill for his 2200 cubic foot room. Yeah, I think. But he wanted those to be his forever subs that he could stay with him, even if he moves to a larger room in the future. SVS told him the 4000 series doesn't use fuses, so that's not an issue. So it seems like it might be part of the issue. And lastly, when the amps have failed on him, there's still some sound coming out of the subs. They don't go completely dead silent, but you can't make out what's playing. It's like the sub is on. That can't be turned up any more than what 1 or 2 clicks on the volume dial would normally be.
So it's almost as though the whole gain structure is blowing.
That doesn't sound at all like what I expected him to say that it sounded like.
I know.
So, if I were SVS, I'd want those amps back. You know what I mean? I would ship them back to me and to figure out what the heck happened, because that does sound very strange.
It's very odd. Yeah.
I don't know. In that case, I almost want to say that last time we saw, there's no way that Yamaha could have anything to do with it. Like, I don't think that the Yamaha did that. I mean,
it was a Marantz, but yeah,
Marantz,
either way,
it was,
the pre-pro.
The pre-pro, yeah.
I still don't think it's that.
I still don't either. But, whatever. Let's get into the questions here. Nick says he was planning on getting a 13-channel Denon X8500H at some point in the future, and he was hoping that it would let him use 9.2.4 setup that includes front wides. You and Rob both. But now there's news that no Dolby isn't going to allow any up mixers for other than their own for Dolby signals, and the Dolby Surround up mixer doesn't put any sounds in the front wides. Furthermore, as we talked about a little while ago, we're seeing some Atmos disc releases where the mastering is being done strictly as channels, not as objects. So once again, the front wides would remain completely silent. Being able to apply DTS Neural X was at least a way to use front wides, but Dolby's mandate might eliminate that option. Plus, Neural X currently maxes out 11 speakers on 13.
That's right.
What's the workaround? Maybe set your sources to decode all audio internally and only output 7.1 PCM. You better be able to use whatever upmixer you want on a PCM signal, right? But then you'd manually have to change the audio output of the source if the source is actually Atmos or DTS-X.
That is all true, correct.
But what you can do, though, you don't have to. You could actually have it output. Because no, that's not necessarily true either. Because they're not going to let you use anything on any Dolby mix or any Dolby Atmos mix. Because most of the time on discs, you have the choice of Atmos or like 7.1 true whatever, and then you should be able to split it out from that, right?
So for actual Atmos or actual DTS-X, usually the choices. The choices are either you just decode it as Atmos or decode it as DTS-X, or you could have your player still decode that into 7.1 PCM. Right. Because it is a 7.1 PCM signal then with the Atmos or the DTS-X metadata on top of that. But if you take your player out of bitstream mode, then it'll just decode internally and send it out as 7.1 PCM. So you could take a genuine Atmos mix, turn it into 7.1 PCM, and then apply a DTS Neural X up mixer to it.
Sure.
I guess you could do that to actual Atmos, although, usually for actual Atmos, you're just going to be like, well, I hope they used objects in the floor layer and that my front wides actually get some action. But either way, you are hearing that Atmos mix as it was intended to be heard. So I'm kind of okay with that, even though it might result in your front wides not having any sounds in them. But it's for everything else. It's for all the older formats, right? So going all the way back to regular Dolby Digital, Dolby Digital Plus, Dolby True HD, all of those Dolby formats, you can't apply, or supposedly, this hasn't happened yet. It was Audioholics reporting on a thing that was sent out to manufacturers that hasn't actually had any public effect as of yet. Maybe it'll never happen. Who knows? Maybe they'll change their mind.
I I'm not even say hopeful. I'm expecting that this will never take effect.
It's possible, yeah.
I find it very unlikely that we're going to have them decide that they're going to use this thing, and then
And then on top of that, we had that fellow who wrote in saying one of the Sound United reps said, I mean, they confirmed it. They said there is this mandate, but that it only applies to future products and not existing products. And the X8500H is an existing product, so I don't know. Maybe it won't be impacted. And you'll still be able to apply DTS Neural X to a Dolby Digital 5.1 signal as you can right now, today. That's how it works.
You just get the Jurassic Park one with DTS X and enjoyed some of the best Dolby Atmos I've ever heard.
There's that too, but
Dolby Atmos, but
let's just assume that it all goes the way we don't want it to go, and the firmware update does affect the X8500H, and it does become so that if you're playing a Dolby Digital 5.1 signal, you can only apply the Dolby Surround Up mixer to it. Could there be a workaround besides the changing it into 7.1 or 5.1 PCM? Because that is an option. It's just the slight hassle of you manually having to do that at your source device, right?
Right.
So, I mean, really the only alternative there would be to do one of the wacky
multiple receiver
setups. You'd have to use the Zone 2 output of the X8500H. That will send the full HDMI signal to a second receiver, and on that second receiver, an older one that, if the firmware updates do go back to previous units, then just don't update the firmware, or assuming that it doesn't affect older units, but the X8500H is new enough that it does, or whatever the scenario might be that causes this. It would have to be a multiple receiver setup, and then you could do it that way with two receivers.
So Dolby just did the work to make these 13 and 15 channel processors possible. They provide discrete 9.1.6 test tones on their own website, but then almost everything they do results in front wides being silent all the time. Why? Can I be dead honest with you, dude? You're like a handful of people who even know what front wides are.
This is true.
There's that, and then there's
that.
I mean, if they mixed it into an absolutely object-based thing, then front wides would theoretically get some use.
Oh yes, during actual Atmos content. I mean, that is not Dolby's fault.
Yeah.
I mean, Dolby made it entirely possible. This is some studios deciding that this is how they're going to mix and master their content, instead of making things into objects in the floor layer. And sometimes, well, they have to be objects in the overhead layer, but sometimes they're mixing them as though they weren't objects. They're just like, no, 4 fixed positions, and that's all we're going to do. To move sounds, we're going to do it with volume levels, not with actually using the object, which is like moving a mouse. How hard is that? But
well,
whatever.
I mean, in my brain, this is what I see. I see a crusty old, surround sound mixer guy who's been doing this job for 20 years.
Yeah,
didn't really want to do surround when surround came around. Got used to it. Atmos was like, now we're going to make it easier. We're going to use this computer. He's like, I'm out. I'm not using any computers. I got my sliders. I'm good. No, wait, just put the speakers there and give me a slider. I could do it.
I've got my potentiometer knobs, and that's as far as I go.
That's it. I'm good.
A joystick? No.
Yeah.
Too difficult.
Well, and I have no idea what's actually going on, but that in my mind is what's happening. So what does that mean? That means that there's going to be a period of time of growth where we're going. It could just be, and the other thing too, like we've got all these, we need an Atmos thing for this. Well, we don't have all the stuff set up. I haven't been trained yet. Okay, well, just make do. That could be it too, right?
I suppose,
just do what you can. Okay, well, I got 13 speakers in here. I guess I'll just use them like I normally do, and then go from there. So I think that there's going to be a mixture of these things. I mean, clearly, it can be done correctly, and it will be done correctly. It's like anything else. I mean, how many times have we seen new technologies come out? When they first come out, the implementation from the studios is pretty lackluster.
No, so I mean, it's it's mostly the Dolby Surround Up mixer, because I mean that is from Dolby. They're like, yeah, the Dolby Surround Up mixer. It just doesn't use front wides, and it if you had the speakers that are in between the center speaker and your front left, and in between the center and your front right, because there are speaker positions possible in an Atmos setup, it won't put anything in those either using the Dolby Surround Up mixer. And they explained it that they don't want to mess with the front sound stage, that they're worried that if they mess with the left, center, right, that things could go awry, and they don't want to do that. So that's been their justification. That's that. I mean, I guess that's the why. That's what they decided to do. But the Atmos isn't Dolby's fault, so can't blame them on that.
So we've talked about the trial, and this is a completely different topic, by the way.
Yes.
We've talked about the trial and error process of measuring multiple subs and multiple seats and gradually adjusting positioning and or phase to try and achieve the most uniform response. Well, all of that assuming the listener only has one mic. What if you bought 3 or 4 measurement mics? Is there an inexpensive or at least reasonably affordable way to plug them all into one computer and see the responses in real time, all in one graph? You'd still be using trial and error, but it would be a lot quicker if you could see all the seating positions at once and in real time, wouldn't it? Question mark, ... This is the Velodyne SMS-1. I used to own this. It actually collected so much dust that I think if you lived in St. Petersburg, you had a chance of getting it at Goodwill, because I think I just threw it out. I tried to give it away, but nobody asked for it. So you would have been the dude. So what you do is, I think it had, because there's the SMS-1, which had one microphone.
Yes.
Little boxy thingy or whatever, but there was the expanded set, which I think could do up to 5.
That's right. It was the Velodyne Mic 5, which was a 5 microphone package and then a little box in the middle. But so I'll let you explain, but I'll get a little bit into it, because it's not quite what he was asking for, but it was a 5 microphone system.
Right. So what this does is it actually sends a test tone. You plug it into your receiver, both video and audio, and the video was like composite. I mean, it was like,
yes, that's right. It was the yellow cable. That's
it was
what
so
it was.
bad. And then you turn on that input, and then you would hear a over and over again as it played a test tone.
Mm-hmm.
The microphones would pick up that test tone. It would go into the box. The box would then analyze it and then put up on the screen the curve that it was being exhibited in your room.
Right.
Now, that curve was like 1/3 octave smooth, which means it smoothed out like all of the stuff that you.
And it was also only one graph. You didn't get 5 separate graphs because it was summing the 5 mics together. So what the Velodyne Mic 5 package was doing. So like, when you run Odyssey and you take multiple measurements up to 8. But then what it's doing with that is spatially averaging it. It's saying, okay, this is the response I'm getting it from position 1 through position 8, but then it averages those responses and gives you one output graph and then tries to equalize that. This was doing that like 5 measurements simultaneously, but it still was just averaging them into one. So it's not quite what we're looking for, which is to have 5 actual different measurements so that you can see if all 5 of those measurements are uniform with one another. We don't want to just sum them all together. We know that's going to happen in the end.
So what you could have done with this is you could have put the mic in one mic in one spot, taken the picture of the graph, took another spike in the second spot, took a picture of the graph, in the third spot. You could have done it that way.
Okay.
And that would give you the different, at least an idea of what these.
Although you can basically still do that now. It's a little bit slower. The SMS would have been faster because it was real time.
It was real time, and it was actually kind of fun. And you could play around with your Q values and your parametric EQs and just really adjust it to your heart's content. And at the time, it was super duper cutting edge, and everybody was super excited about it.
But it's a little bit moot because you can't get that thing anymore.
You would have to find it on eBay. Yes.
And it isn't exactly what he's looking for in that it is still just one at a time. It just happens to be real time instead. So I don't have an answer directly that is, you can connect 4 microphones reasonably and affordably, because there are systems that'll do that, but they're thousands of dollars. Right. They're professional monitoring stations. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, it exists. Or there's the JBL Arcos system.
That sounds cheap.
That is thousands of dollars.
You get that at any Best Buy.
So you're basically asking for something that does exist, but at a much more affordable price. And I mean, I might just be ignorant of it existing, but I don't know of it.
It's not just the microphone hookups that's the problem here. The problem is that I don't think there's software that will easily take 4, 5, however many microphones you can figure out how to plug into. Like my preamp for the podcast I do has 4 inputs.
Okay, yeah.
I could plug 4 different mics in here. It would go into 4 different channels on the recording software, and it's absolutely fine.
Oh, it will actually go into 4 different channels?
Yeah, I can do it. I can at least do 2 for sure, but I'm pretty sure I could do 4.
Because I was thinking most of the mic inputs that I've seen that are microphone preamps to then plug it into your computer with a USB cable, they're usually summing together the mics as well.
So let me look.
So, for example, mine has 2 microphone inputs and a left and right channel output, so it would definitely be possible for sure to have 2 microphone signals going into a computer. And people have been
I have
working
to look at this thing for sure, but it's got like there's a little line underneath the first 2 that say microphone inputs and the other 2 that say instrument inputs. But I'm pretty sure that you can EQ each one of those separately with the included software. So pre-Sonos something. But I mean, even if you could get all 4, let's just pretend all 4 mics plugged in, there is no software that's like Room EQ Wizard where you can analyze all 4 of those simultaneously and see them all simultaneously and do all the stuff.
Doesn't seem to be. They've been working on Room EQ Wizard to get 2. They've been working on that. It's not out yet, but that is something that's in the works, is to allow 2 microphones to measure simultaneously.
Where do you put the second mic? That's the real question. You get the first mic at your prime listening position, then where's the second mic?
On the seat next to you. I mean, at least you can see you have 2 seats are uniform.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, for me, it's
better than just one.
I want 3. I want one on either side. So, but
to that end, one of my thoughts was, well, quite a few of us have more than one tablet or phone at this point. Like maybe you and your wife both have a phone, and maybe you also have a tablet. This is not out of the question at all these days.
Yeah.
So if you have 3 devices like that, you could get the microphone. So there's several different microphones that are actual measurement microphones that can plug into your phone or tablet. Usually they just use the headphone microphone jack, which is a problem if you're using phones these days that no longer have headphone jacks, which is annoying the heck out of me. But you can use the little adapter that goes headphone jack to USB-C or headphone jack to lightning cable or whatever the heck you're doing there. But Dayton has one example, which is, I think it's only like $17, so you could pick up 3 of those for a very reasonable price. And then there are other ones. Mini DSP does have one that's $55. And, of course, our friends over at Cross Spectrum Labs there, he has one which is, so it's $125, but the difference is that this is the only one that actually goes below 20 hertz. No. The other 2 mics, being as small as they are, they don't have any response below 20 hertz. The ones that Cross Spectrum Labs sells goes all the way down to 5 hertz with accuracy. So that's what you're paying with for all the extra money, is if you want to go below 20. But for the purposes of just seeing if you can get uniform bass across, let's say 3 seats, yes, you yourself are going across to 3 different screens, but at least it's still in real time.
Yeah.
3 different devices, and it's an affordable, I mean, it's a kind of a janky workaround, but it's affordable, so I could see maybe doing that.
Yeah, but once you see that, when you can't adjust it on the fly.
Well, you can adjust the subwoofers on the fly and see what the results are.
Stuff like that. Yeah, I suppose you could.
Because that's what he wants to do is see the result of making a change to the subwoofer, either its position or a setting on the sub, and to see in real time then what it did, but across multiple seats.
Are these? Is this all one email? Because these questions are all over the place.
Oh no, those were several different emails, but it was all one person, so I grouped them into one.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, good. Because I'm like, what? Yeah, no, you're right. You could, at least for the phase stuff, you could do that.
Oh, sure. Or even physically moving the sub around.
Right.
Yeah.
So Oppo's own Ultra HD Blu-ray players are no longer available, save for their last batch plans for the summer. But what about 4K Blu-ray players from other brands that are based on the 203 or 205, like the Cambridge CX UHD? That player is still available from several retailers, and while its $700 price was initially higher than the 550 Oppo, it's now, it's a 203, it's now cheaper for what the 203 units are going for.
Yes.
So will Oppo live on behind the scenes, or will the rebadge players disappear soon too? Dude, I bet that they live on behind the scenes. They're probably like...
Oh, you think so?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I could see it happening.
I think there's
a trade war that apparently we're starting. I caught
with everybody
5 seconds of the news today, and I was like, okay, turning it off. that sounds awful. I don't want to. Can we go back to listening to Jack Johnson pretending that the world's still fine.
I don't know. I mean, Oppo is so the guys over at AV Forums in the UK, apparently they had a lot more information from Oppo than like anybody else for some reason, because they were like, oh yeah, the people they were talking to from Oppo, which is the parent company is based in China. Sure. And they're like, we have our manufacturing plants. We're making much more money on cell phones and cell phone related products.
They do make cell phones, but we don't get those in the States.
No, but they do in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
So they're like, that's where we're making our profit. So we're going to reclaim all of the manufacturing space that was being done on these consumer electronics products.
Yeah.
And use that for cell phone space. So I'm like, where are the parts going to be manufactured for these other these other players that were rebadged? I think they're just going away.
That and that would be a shame if it was so. And one of my thoughts is that selling to manufacturers is a lot easier than selling to consumers.
Sure.
In that they might want to stay on,
or I mean, maybe just sell the design if someone else is willing to set up the fabrication plant to put the darn thing together.
We'll see. Yeah. But yes, if that's true, then yeah, they sound like they're going away. When we talk about base pressurization, is there something that you could still experience even with the master volume set to reference below reference volume? Obviously, at full reference volume, that would be noticeable. But how low can you turn the volume dial before the full room pressurization effect goes away? Well, I know. I mean, in my room, I wasn't anywhere near full reference volume, and I was like jumping to the remote to turn it down because it was shaking the whole room. So I guess it depends on the source and the disc.
It does.
So I mean, if you're one of those discs that's mixed pretty low, you could go above reference volume and it would still maybe not hit pressurization. But I'm telling you, Jurassic Park at like -10 was. I was like, my wife is going to come in here and scream at me if I don't turn it down.
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as getting a tactile sensation and then the pressurization sensation of, actually feeling like your chest being compressed or getting that blurriness in your vision, interestingly, that can happen at a lower decibel level than what our hearing will tell us. Like at a very low frequency, like 20 hertz, or especially below 20 hertz, where it has to be playing at like 80 or 85 decibels for our ear to register it at 20 hertz. But you can still sense it. This is why sometimes they talk about, this is bass you can feel but not hear. Right? And that can occur at a decibel level lower than 80 or 85 decibels. So naturally, if there's a sound in the soundtrack that at full reference volume would have been the maximum that it could be in the low frequency effects channel of 115 decibels, you could be significantly below full reference volume and still feel pressurization. You'd be 30 decibels below and still be at 85 right, for that. But for most of the other bass in the movie, it would probably be too quiet.
Right.
So yeah, it depends on the source. There's no hard and fast number I can say, set your volume dial to this and you will always feel pressurization. It depends. It's variable.
McMansion Chris, this is only the second question. It's the second person. We are an hour into this podcast, and this is not all my fault. McMansion Chris has a Marantz SR7010 receiver and an Epson 5040 UV projector. He's been using his Oppo BDP103 Blu-ray player until now, but now that Redbox is starting to carry 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays, he wants to get an Ultra HD Blu-ray player. He cares more about the audio than the video. He doesn't care about the player having any built-in streaming services, thank God. With Oppo no longer an option and the desire to spend less than $300 if possible, what do we recommend most highly? Well, I've got the Sony BDP, whatever it is, X700.
Yes. And
that one is fine. And the streaming services bother me because the lip sync is not nearly as good as it is on the other one. The discs look fine, but the streaming services drive me and they're just a little bit behind. And if I fix that, it screws up everything else. So, yeah, if you don't care about streaming services, the Sonys are good. As far as picture is concerned, though, I have noticed that watching a 4K disc, the colors aren't 100% correct, or at least the darks. But a lot of times you can see it almost looks like there's like in the dark sections you'll see like something looks like it's glowing almost a little bit. It's a little bit lighter around it. Like,
you are having to convert, in your case, you're having to convert the HDR signal that's on the disc to SDR, though.
And it tells you that if you hit the info button, it's HDR to SDR. So that conversion is not like super awesome.
Right, and that's the reason I would recommend going with the X800 Which is, so you can get it on Amazon right now for, they got a $228, so definitely under 300. The X800 has some settings in it, not as many as the Oppo offers, but it has some settings in it to let you adjust that HDR to SDR conversion if you want to do that. Although the 5040 UB can accept an HDR10 signal, it doesn't have to convert to SDR.
Yeah,
so, yeah. You could just send that out, but I like recommending the X800 to anybody using a projector because very often
you didn't recommend that to me when I asked you.
Yes,
you recommended the 700. You said to get the 700.
You said you wanted the cheapest one, so I said get the X700. That was the cheapest one.
That's not what I said.
That is what you said. You said what's the cheapest?
Doesn't sound like me. Doesn't sound like me at all.
Well, plus I was
cheapest and best.
Plus, I was using it as a guinea pig. I wanted to see if the 700 had the same settings as the 800, but we went through all the menu options, and it doesn't look like it does.
It does.
So.
No, there are no setting options for the HDR. The
well,
SDR.
There's the are you using a flat panel or a projector, but that's about it.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
The X800 has more. It actually has some variables about how dark or bright the image as a whole gets when you convert HDR to SDR. The X800 has that.
Christian, at Bethesda's E3 conference, they showed some super wide gameplay footage. Okay, what kind of display do conferences like that use to make videos like that possible? How much does that sort of thing cost? Super wide screen? What?
Yeah, so I mean, they had this display up behind whoever was talking on screen or on stage, and it was this really wide display, and really what it looks like is 3 16:9 images side by side by side.
So they have 3 projectors back there, and they
got 3 projectors back there. That's well, especially since they did things like what I'm showing in the image on YouTube, which is they would show the person talking on either side and then the graphic in the middle. Right. So it very clearly looks like 3 projectors that were blended together side by side. But that takes some doing too, getting that blending, because they did show gameplay footage which used like that entire width of the screen to make a super wide image, and you didn't see the seams in between, and it looked like it was blended pretty well. So there's some stuff going on. So how'd they do that? What does it cost?
You can there's lots of graphic cards that are out there that I've even had on not very expensive computers that will allow you to put multiple screens right next to each other and then spread everything out. I don't remember them going 3 wide. It's usually
most of them will do 2. Yeah,
they'll do 2.
Yeah,
and then or maybe 4, so that you just basically blow it up. But that's not an unusual thing to see in a computer.
No, and getting the blending, so having it just butted end to end, that's fairly simple. Most regular graphics cards do that, but so there's a company called Matrox. So I'm sure this isn't what Bethesda was using, because it looked like they were actually doing like 3 4K projectors side by side. So they're probably using something much higher end. But for a normal person or a normal company that isn't their size and doing a show at E3, you can get cards from a company called Matrox. They go for about $500 that do 3 screens, and they do more than just butt the images together side by side. They actually blend the images into one another. So they gradually, so let's say the screen that's farthest on the left, they will gradually dim the right side of that screen, and then they will gradually dim the left side of the middle projector, and when you put them together, they sort of blend together. That's the idea. So that's some processing going on, but the graphics cards themselves that can do that are only about $500, $500 to $700, depending on what sort of power you're looking for. So that's not too bad. And then usually you'd be using a large venue projector for this type of thing. Again, I'm thinking Bethesda was using 3 4K projectors, so they're probably much more expensive than the standard Mitsubishi or Panasonic. So the Matrox cards, they're like, we work best with these, like the D6000 from Panasonic, which is about a $10,000 projector, or the 8000 series from Mitsubishi, which is about a $20,000 projector.
Just $60,000.
But the D8 the D6000 from Panasonic is less than 1080p resolution. I think it's like that 768 resolution thing. And then the Mitsubishis are 1080p resolution for $20,000 a piece. But they also have like, what is it, 17,000 lumens or something like that. But you kind of need that when you got the whole lights on and everything going on. So yeah, you're looking at, I don't know what,
$100,000
to $60,000 for a normal. And then these guys probably spent a lot more than that.
Yeah. They also just probably rented it.
Yes.
David on Twitter. David mentioned previously how he was getting lots of blockiness and noise whenever dark images are being shown on his EG9 9100 OLED.
Mm-hmm.
He sent a picture showing the completely unwatchable example. The show was Legion on FX being streamed via his NVIDIA Shield with a wired connection. All right, so if you're seeing this,
Yes.
you know what we're talking about. If you're not seeing this, imagine if you took all the colors of blue Legos that you could find and threw them in a box.
Yeah.
Look down at it, because that's what this looks like. It's just square images of them. Now, I can't imagine the entire show was like this, but this was like during a scene that was supposed to be sort of uniformish color, or like a color that
something
changed.
I'm not quite sure. It
like
is completely unwatchable. That is indiscernible as anything.
Well, I mean,
It's just blocks.
I clearly see a butterfly.
Yeah, really.
That's a very
I don't know. I see almost kind of a smiley face with those.
There
those
is
couple...
a bit of a Space Invader in the middle, a little bit to the right, and on the left there, that's the Space Invader that just got shot and he's blowing up. And then the dark spot in the top right, that would be the other shot that missed, and then above there, there's a little white part, which is the UFO going by on the top. Okay,
and since Legion is such a weird show, who knows? Maybe that is what it was. But no, that is an unwatchable image. Yeah,
I have not watched the second season of Legion, but I'm very excited to get into it. I just finished the second season of Attack on Titan, so I'm now opening up my viewing things to other things. My wife has started watching Merlin. Which is a show on BBC, which makes me want to slowly kill myself, because that show is bad. All right. On Rob's advice, he tried playing Pacific Rim on a physical Blu-ray disc, and he saw no evidence of this egregious problem in the dark images. So he tried using his Roku instead of his Shield to stream Legion again, and the Roku had the same awful picture. Sometimes it isn't even the dark images, that the whole show can look blurry or pixelated sometimes. So what is going on here? What is to blame? Because the current situation is unacceptable. You, sir, have a bit weight. Right, it's you right there.
It certainly seems that way.
You, sir, are not getting whatever bandwidth you think you're getting from your ISP. Okay, your internet service provider has told you, unless you are on dial-up, which is almost kind of what this looks like. I have seen stuff like this happen on my computer. On my stream. It happens. You get a bit rate dip for one reason or another, and everything goes blah. And my wife looks over at me and says, "What's going on? Is it broken?" I'm like, "Just wait, it'll be fine." And then it slowly buffers and catches up, and then it goes back to HD. You're stuck at SD level,
lower than SD. Yeah.
I mean, this is bad. So
yeah, I mean, this is when it's compressing it so badly that you're getting this horrible macro blocking, because that's what we're seeing here is horrible macro blocking. And then when you're describing that, sometimes the entire thing looks blurry or pixelated. I mean, that's just, it's dropped the resolution probably down to like 240p. You know, like YouTube can do that, right?
Yep.
Can go that low. Yeah, I mean, so I really wanted him to play the Blu-ray disc, because I'm like, if a Blu-ray looks like this, something's wrong with your TV.
A problem. Yes, that's this TV issue.
But he's like, no, I mean, there were some imperfections, because yes, there are in the older OLEDs, in the very dark scenes, there were some imperfections, which is something we mentioned before. Yeah. But he's like, nothing like this. You know, this is egregious and unwatchable. It looked pretty darn clean from the Blu-ray. So I'm like, okay, we know it's not your TV. We know the Shield and the Roku are entirely capable of streaming very good-looking images. Maybe not quite as good as an Ultra HD Blu-ray, but very, very good looking images. So it's not the hardware. That's the good news. The bad news is this is a bit starved situation, but we can't say exactly why. We don't know what service you're paying for and what level of service.
Right. Are you using a wired connection, which is good, but if your wired connection is to a modem that is, or a router that is not getting enough bandwidth, or if there's something else going on, if you've got 3 kids in the house and all of them are playing Fortnite at the same time, you know,
sometimes people are using those power line adapters, right? And they're like, that's a hardwired connection, but those power line adapters can have lots of interference that drops your bit rate as a result. It doesn't seem to be a Wi-Fi problem if you had it, hardwired in. But I was wondering, are you maybe using a VPN? A lot of people use a VPN.
Yeah, VPNs will starve you too.
A virtual private network, so that your internet service provider can't see everything that you're doing. It's a way to sort of mask your activity. A lot of people use that, or they use it because they're in another country and they want to access the United States version of Netflix or something. Like I would have to use a VPN if I wanted to do that when I'm here in Canada. And very often going through a VPN will drop your bit rate to next to nothing. So it's something in your bit rate. That is the cause, but we don't know exactly what.
You want to go to your computer or whatever it is, connect to the same. Like if you have a laptop, that'd be great. Sure. Connect to the same wire that you're connecting your NVIDIA Shield and all this other stuff too. And then just do a speed test.
Just do a speed test. In fact, you can do that right on the NVIDIA Shield because there's a speed test app.
Oh, yeah, it is a computer. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Why not? And then see what's going on there. And then if you were promised like 1.5, whatever it is per second, and it's telling you something significantly lower than that, it's time to call your internet service provider and figure out what's going on. You could just have an old modem or a bad router
just be
or something
that.
like that.
Yep.
So we won't know for sure until you do some tests. Infinite Gary has infinite. No, he doesn't. He has only a couple of questions or one question, 2 questions. Gary says, can we please sort something out for Gary? We've often talked about absorption panels, typically 2 feet by 4 feet in size, because that's what size they come in. And we pretty much always say to mount them so that they're at ear height, mostly 2 feet off the floor. It's true. And it's been mentioned that there's not much benefit to having panels that in that bottom 2 feet, or worrying about making panels full floor to ceiling. But then we've also sometimes talked about just having panels in the room pretty much anywhere. So which is it? Now, first of all, I have never said the words, there's no point to having panels in the bottom 2 feet, or about worrying about making panels floor to ceiling. There's no point to having panels in the bottom 2 feet because you're going to cover your electrical outlets. So
it does. You're not literally covering the whole wall. It doesn't have to.
That's why I don't want to. A lot of times, like literally, my panel that is my first reflection point for my right speaker is right above an outlet. So that's just just that. When your room is highly reflective, any absorption anywhere is better than better than what you currently have.
Right. So, that's just to get rid of the room ringing as a whole.
Right.
You know, even your own voice in some rooms, and we've all experienced this. You go into some rooms and you're just talking and you can like literally hear a bit of an echo or at least a reverberation. And in those situations, if you could put some absorption anywhere, it'll help. It'll just cut down the reverberation of the room as a whole.
Sure. But when people ask us, where should I put my panels? That's a different answer. That answer has to do with
specifically about reflections from the speakers.
And that's a different answer. So what to clarify, pretty much. So which is it? Both. It is both. Right. It all depends
on the situation.
Yeah, the situation. If you're like, remember that guy in India who had the marble room? Yes. I was like, dude, I don't care where you put the panel. Put it someplace. Just
get something in there. Anything.
Poor guy,
as much as you can. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you have a room that is not reverberant. You go in there and it sounds like a normal room and you can hold a conversation without any sort of echo or reverberation. But you might still want to put some acoustic panels at your first reflection points or directly behind your own head. And that is to get rid of the strong reflections that are going from the speaker to a wall to your ear. And you're cutting down on that specific reflection. And we want those at your ear height because it's that specific reflection. It's the overall too reverberant a room where we're like, put it anywhere just to get rid of that echo in your room.
Right. So Gary says he's tried a few 4K HDR displays at this point, including he has an OLED, doesn't he?
He sure does.
And he just isn't enjoying them. Even after professional calibration, they just appear too vivid and to Gary's eyes unnatural. He feels as though he's looking at a Best Buy store display. Do we have the same reaction? No, I have never seen in my room a 4K display, but it feels to me like this is some sort of video processing that you might have on. I mean,
nah, he's at them pro calibrated.
Well, that doesn't mean that they haven't turned it off. They did the thing that they're supposed to do.
Yeah, even if you just set your OLED to like ISF night mode, you're pretty good. Yeah. Even if you did nothing else.
Maybe you don't like him, dude. Maybe you're not ready for him.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be to his preference, which is fine. Nobody's obligated to prefer it. I don't feel the same way. I do feel that the OLED that I have and that my parents has definitely looks more vivid, that the colors are stronger and more vibrant than my old TV, than their old TV.
No, isn't it? Isn't that the
contrast? The contrast definitely looks higher. There's no question because the blacks are just inky black and the white levels are significantly brighter if you want them to be. Like when I tried watching my OLED in a truly pitch black room, which I don't usually do, that's not my viewing environment, but I tried just completely pitch black room and I had to turn that OLED light setting, that's the overall light put out of the whole panel, I had to turn that down to 12. Because I was like, it's too bright otherwise in a really pitch black room. I'm like, too bright, it makes me squint. So there's some of that going on. It is brighter, unquestionably. So I don't think you're wrong because there is a difference. There's a clearly visible difference. I agree. it looks more vibrant and more contrasty, and I had to turn the light down if my lights were off. But I like it, so I don't feel that I don't like it. But that's just a difference of opinion. But you're certainly not seeing a difference. There is a difference to be seen.
Well, I would
Most
hope
people
so.
like the difference.
If you're going to go out and buy a brand new technology, you know, I would hope that you would see a difference. If not, then why are you buying the new technology? You know, at least that's my take on that.
Yeah.
Find 6.
What are you doing?
Sorry, I'm trying to. I lost the place that I was at. I'm trying to find it, and it didn't find it. There's Infinite Gary. I found him. All right.
Okay.
Number 6. Sometimes I
like
try to scroll to another
such
screen.
a large document.
It is. But I scrolled to a different screen, and then when I come back, the whole thing has to load back up. And I didn't. I was trying to go to a different desktop because I was going to check my email real quick while you were. Blah, blah, blah. All right. I bet whoever that podcast was that you just made fun of that you didn't like their format, they are gonna comment on this. Like, you think our format is bad? You should hear you guys ramble on for two freaking hours.
We're a podcast. What I didn't like was they sounded too polished and professional. I'm like, that's not a podcast. Podcast is to be like two guys, two amateurs who have no idea what they're doing.
Insulted by that. I'm supposed to be. We're not professional. I've been doing this for 10 years.
We're not professional.
Like we're professional a little bit. All right. Joe has 2 sons, and each son has his own Xbox One. They enjoy playing together in Joe's home theater, but one son gets the JVC X550 projector, while the other son only gets a small computer monitor. Joe uses a 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio screen, so is there a way to have the 2 images from the 2 Xbox Ones on that CinemaScope screen at the same time, side by side? Joe figures he'll need a video imager tiler with at least 2 HDMI inputs and 1 HDMI output. And to complicate things, he'd like everything to be 4K compatible, both for the existing setup and for a future 4K projector upgrade. He'd love to be able to switch between showing one of the Xboxes, as it would normally show up on the screen all on its own, and the other 2 Xboxes side by side without having to physically plug and unplug any cables. And to top it all off, it needs to be reliable and affordable. What have we got? That's well, okay. I think I was all on board with this question until you got to affordable.
Yeah,
at affordable, I think you lost the plot, but you were okay up to there because this is certainly 100% doable. You see this all the time on demonstrations of video games on TV shows.
Okay, sure, yeah.
So there's no reason why this doesn't exist. I just don't know that you can do it affordably, and Rob's going to tell you whether or not that's the case.
Oh, plus without a whole bunch of lag, because usually when you're seeing it on a TV show, they kind of put that together in post-production.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's like pre-captured footage, and then they're putting that together. That's so the lag isn't a problem. But in real time, you don't want the lag. So if you go to somewhere like B&H Photo, they do have tilers, and they do have things that are just called multi-view processors. Now, do you consider $500 affordable? Because there are $500 units that what they're designed to do is put up 4 images, like 1 in each corner.
Yeah.
But of course, you could just put up 2, and then like your projector has lots of lens shift, so you could put up 2 images and then just move it down or up to make that fit your screen.
Sure.
But there's a problem, which is that if you get one of the ones that can do this with HDMI for $500, it's limited to 1080p. There aren't any that can do it 4K. There are ones that can do it at 4K. They're about $3,000, and they don't do HDR. It's 4K resolution, but it's 4K resolution at the 10.2 gigabits per second, which means you're not getting the HDR, or you're only getting it at 30 frames a second, which for video games, not so great. You want the 60 frames a second. So you can do this at 1080p for about $500. That can be done. But he said he wants 4K.
I'll be honest with you, dude. For $3,000, it's just cheaper to buy a second projector and then zoom one in on one side of the screen and one on the other.
Well, is really my suggestion. Well, especially because you've already got the X550. It's motorized lens memories, so you can just have it so that you press a button and it shrinks down and moves over to one side.
Yeah.
And then you fire up a second projector. Now, you can get like if you were going to do the 1080p solution for $500, you can get a 1080p projector for $500, which is going to look better than the tiny little computer monitor that one son is using right now. It won't look as good as the JVC beside it, but oh well, it's still an upgrade over the computer monitor. Or if you wanted to even do it at 4K, I mean, you could get one of the $1,500 4K DLP projectors as cheaper than $3,000 for the Tyler that can do this at 4K resolution. Now, there is a company called Blackmagic Design. They have a multi-view unit that can do 4K. Again, it's only 10.2 gigabits per second, but
so are both the kids wearing headphones then, I guess, to do this?
Yeah,
because
they're doing it. Well, on the Xboxes, you can actually just have the sound coming out of the controller directly into headphones.
Yeah, you'd have to, because if not, then it's going to get real confusing real fast.
Yeah, but the Blackmagic Design one that I wanted to mention, it can do the 4K, limited to 10.2 gigabits per second, but it can do the 4K at about $500, but it's an SDI connection because it's a professional video monitoring thing, which means you'd have to convert the HDMI to SDI, and to do that at 4K resolution is about $140, and you'd need two of them. So now you're spending like $800 to do this, at which point you can just get another projector.
The answer is a new projector.
I really think the solution is to get a second projector. I really, really genuinely think that's what you should do.
Or you tell your sons to suck it, and they can the one you don't like the most can use the little computer monitor, and they can switch off every once in a while. Because that's kind of what I would do.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think he wants an easy, simple, affordable solution in a box you can just plug this stuff into and have it work. $500 you can do it at 1080p, but yeah.
Right. So Schmidt?
I believe so.
Schmidt? Yeah. Schmidt wrote this a little over 3 years ago, and I did recognize that name. And he says our advice back then was very helpful. Well, you're welcome, sir, or madam. Sir, he's been renting an apartment for the past several years, but now he's just bought a house. He plans to set up his home theater in the basement, but he's trying to figure out which section of his basement should be the home theater area and how to best position everything. The stairs come down sort of in the middle of the space, and there's no door. If you just come down the stairs, there's a room to the left that's roughly 10 feet wide and about 15 feet long. But that room is not all the same width. There's just a jut in for the storage area just under the staircase. Okay, so if you come down the stairs and you turn left and you turn left again, so you make turn 180 degrees, you're looking down the 15-foot wall, and then there's a little space underneath the staircase there too as well. To the right of the stairs, there's a larger room, about 14 feet wide and 20 feet long, but it's not a rectangle either. There's a small hallway that leads to a utility room and then a bathroom. So which side of the basement would you recommend using as a theater, and what is the best way to position the setup?
Yeah.
Okay, so, you could still build a wall. I'm just going to throw that out there as an option.
It doesn't really look like that's the plan.
Well,
but
it's not the plan, that's for sure. And he's got like a video walkthrough, which is I actually thought was helpful, but also a little bit confusing. So we have dealt with this sort of situation before in rooms, and he's taken the pictures in backwards order, which the ones that you're seeing on the screen. So if you're looking at if you're showing Rob the one that has the exercise machine, that's the first one. That is the smaller room. That's about 10 feet wide, 15 feet long or so. Right, 15 feet long. So that one right there. Now I don't know what that opening back there is too. What is that window that's in the back there? That's open?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I would think that goes to maybe your electrical panel.
I don't know.
That's the type of opening I would expect for that, but
that sort of scares me a little bit. So there's a couple of different options here that I'm looking at. Now the other picture, Rob, if you can show that one, is actually like to your left is the staircase.
Correct.
And then
he's taking it from the back of the room where the bathroom is,
right?
Where the hallway is in the bathroom.
There's a hallway in the bathroom back there, and you can see he's got it set up so that his couch is on the staircase, and then there's a TV on the other wall.
Yeah.
Now, either of these rooms is going to be challenging, but not impossible.
Sure.
So I kind of, just looking at them, I kind of like the first room. Okay, if you go back.
Really? And the narrower room.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I like it is because there's that space underneath the staircase there.
Yes.
And I like the idea of putting the screen either on the false wall right there and everything behind it. I mean, that gives you probably, it's 10 feet. It's still 10 feet from the beginning of that, it would be 10 feet from the screen to the back of the room. Unless you can do it the opposite way so that you're covering up whatever that little door is at the back, so that you're going across the 10-foot width. You could put a false wall there, put your stuff behind there.
Or just a retractable screen would also
Retractable screen would work as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Where you've got it currently set up, I think is also okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that as well. You clearly can't cover up the door to the hallway to the bathroom. So
nope.
I think there's three options here. There's how you've got it. The first one I said, which was, the screen or the screen of the TV or whatever underneath the staircase, or the screen at the back of the room where your little piano.
When you're saying the screen under the staircase, are you talking like it would be on like one of the 15-foot walls, and then you'd be across the room from that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then you're only 10 feet away at the most, and that's with your seat on the back wall.
That's with your seat on the back wall. That is true.
Gosh. I honestly, I was looking at this. How would I set this? I mean, my instinct is to go for the larger room. Just that's my first instinct.
Yeah, but you got less options back there. This other one has got you can do stuff to it.
But I would just think when it's only 10 feet wide, because my instinct is if it's only 10 feet wide, I don't really want to have my seat right up against the back wall if I can avoid it.
Sure.
Which would mean I would end up putting the screen on that wall that has the little door opening that goes to whatever. We're not quite sure what's behind the little door. So I would probably put my screen there. I'd probably go for a retractable screen, but then it's only 10 feet wide. So I guess you can still fit a 3-seater couch.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not too bad.
My couch is 10 feet, and I got 5 people can sit on the thing.
All right, so there you go. I'll agree to that. I'll say put a retractable screen on the wall that has the little door, and then if a 3-seater couch is enough, then you can have that. Behind you will just be open to the back, and then to your left will be the staircase.
That's what he's got right there, anyways. Is a 3-seater couch, right?
Yeah, looks like.
But
okay.
You're not going to be able to get that side seat on there, that your little whatever that recliner thingy. He's got a single.
Well, no, it could sit in the back corner and just be a sitting chair. It would still have a view of the screen, but be far away.
Yeah.
There you go.
Either way,
that's what we'll recommend.
The basement is carpeted, and there's a drop tile ceiling, but otherwise the walls are a flat drywall, and there's some fairly large windows. What we recommend in terms of acoustic treatments and where would we place them? Well, until we know where you put your stuff.
Okay. But let's assume, since both of us kind of favored going with the smaller room, even though it's not my first instinct, but ultimately it makes the most sense is to go with the smaller side. Let's just assume that's where he is. Where would panels go? Because it's not too complicated, right? Side walls, whatever your side walls end up being.
Yeah, wherever your first reflection point is. And then behind you, I think there are windows back there. So
yes. Yeah.
I don't think you can put anything back there.
Yeah, you can kind of see from the other photo, you can see that there is windows over to the left. Yeah. Well, it's more like a door leading outside, but
yeah. So it's a very strange basement.
Well, not really. It's stairs come down, and there's a room to the left and a room to the right.
I guess I'm used to basements being not. As somebody who's never owned a basement, I have literally no experience.
But pressurizing this room with base, that's not going to happen. You don't have a door to your basement. You've got this whole open space. We're not talking about constructing. If you want to construct a wall, that changes everything. But he didn't mention anything about that. He's like, this is the space I got. What's the best way to set it up? Assuming it is the way that it is. If you put a back wall on your 10-foot wide room, right from where the staircase is, all the way across. But then you're shortening that room quite a bit too.
You are, but we don't know how much. It doesn't look like it's going to be that much, but it's probably going to turn into a 10 by 10 room.
10 by 12 at the most or something. Yeah,
10 by 12. Well, yeah, I guess maybe 12, 13, something like that. Looks like it's got a little refrigerator back there anyways. But so those are deeper than 2 feet.
But we don't know what the ventilation system would be at that point and all that. It's a whole can of worms.
Tile, so clearly he can just add that vent someplace if he has to.
In any case, let's assume the construction is remaining as is. We'd put some panels on the side walls at your first reflection.
Side walls at the first reflection point. There's nothing you can do from behind your head unless you put some panels up there.
And you wouldn't really need it anyway. There's sufficient room behind you. I'm not too worried about that.
If these aren't acoustic tile panels, the acoustic tile for the drop tile, some good ones of those, you could replace all of those with decent ones. And that would be nice.
Actually, that'd be quite a bit of absorption if you went for the absorbing type of acoustic tiles.
Yeah. Says he's got a budget of around $1,500 for some new gear. He needs a new display, a pair of surround speakers, although that isn't a priority. And that budget would also need to cover the acoustic panels, any accessories or cables or an equipment stand. His old TV stopped working, so it's just sitting there apparently. So what would he go for in terms of display? He's thinking a projection setup would be nice. So which screen and projector if he goes that route? So if you're sitting on that back wall with a retractable screen, you're probably, I mean, really, I would recommend getting a bigger, a slightly smaller screen and sitting closer to it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't go beyond 92. Like if you're going in that smaller room that's only 10 feet wide, I would go with a 92-inch screen.
I think I would go smaller than that because 92 is not going to give you a ton of room to the sides to place speakers.
Yeah, but it's enough. And it's tough to find smaller than 92.
You can get 80. Can't you get 80 or 82? Isn't that a standard size? 86?
Not from most places. No. But I'm suggesting retractables. So to keep the budget under control, probably Elite, right?
Yeah, you got to go
most
Elite.
likely. Yeah, because Silver Ticket isn't really selling retractable screens anymore, unfortunately.
No. So, and that's going to set you back, what, like $500, $400 for a retractable
Well, what
screen?
about mono price? Maybe we go mono price for a retractable screen.
I'm
a little leery of Elite these days because people are having all those problems.
They are having issues. I don't want to Google it right now.
Yeah, but I'm thinking Monoprice does have affordable. I mean, they're just basic white, but they're affordable retractable screens. You're going to want to cover up those windows, though, man. If you're going projection, you got to get something. But I mean, that's just blackout curtains. That's doable.
Yeah, blackout curtains back there and on all of them, not just the ones that are directly behind you.
You want to make this room as dark as you can because at this price point, you're not getting an ambient light rejecting screen, and we don't really like them anyway. Yeah. That's gonna raise a bunch of problems. Having said that, I apologize, all you ambient light rejecting loving screen people, but
I don't apologize. All right,
but
so
at this price, it's just going to be a white screen.
Blackout curtains, you could probably let's budget. You're gonna need 2 or 3 of them. No, they usually cut. They're usually half a window wide. Mine are to make them look nice. So you're gonna need probably, let's just say, 3 pairs, which they usually come in pairs anyways. And I think when I bought mine, which was a while ago, they're fairly cheap. I got them on sale, so they're $20 each.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's what I paid for mine. So let's budget $100 for curtains. So now he's got $1,400 left. Let's budget $400 for a screen.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to see. I mean, you could go manual.
I was going to say unless he wants to go manual, and that's going to be like, I think $200 is plenty for something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, actually, Monoprice has a 92-inch manual projection screen for $100.
Okay.
But let's budget $200. I think that's reasonable.
All right, so now we're at $300. Okay, so $300. We need a projector.
Yeah. Well, get the BenQ, right? I mean, you got to the 2050.
Okay, and how much is that?
About $700.
So now we're up to $1,000. He needs either a shelf or a mount. So.
Oh, but a mount for what? The projector?
For the projector, yeah.
Oh yeah, $40.
Okay, so now let's say 50. So now we're up to $10.50 total.
Okay.
He's going to need a cable to get back to it, an HDMI cable to get back to it. So
Monoprice again.
Monoprice again for.
We're going to be sending you a mono because you can get the mount, the screen, and the HDMI cable all from Monoprice.
So let's say another $50 for the cable.
Sure, that's probably more than enough, but yeah.
Okay, so now we're at $1,100. So we have $400 left to spend. And what else do you want?
Some surround speakers, and actually we can deal with that because he talks about what he already has. So.
Right. Okay. All right. So that's this projector and the screen.
But I think we can do this quite reasonably.
The acoustic panels. If he
acoustic panels
DIYs it.
Or gets the kits from Acoustimac because you don't need a ton. I say, get 4. Get 4.
Well, I don't think he's going to have enough room for 4 in there. To be honest with you, I would. I don't even think he really needs I was thinking corner traps, but I don't even think he needs that because he's going to that entire room is just a bass trap. It's just going to get
your front, left, and right speakers are. I mean, even if you go with a smaller than 92, they are going to be quite close to the side walls. So you're going to want to have some panels like right on the side walls, right next to the speakers, like just in front of them, right next to them.
So let's just say 2 panels for now.
Okay. Well, you can do that for like $100.
Okay. So that now we're at he's got $300 left to spend.
Yeah. You can get surround speakers for $300.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is that everything though? Cables, display, pair of sound speaker, a budget also cover acoustic panels and accessories like cables or equipment stand. You don't need an equipment stand.
I think, yeah. I mean, if you go with the monoprice screen, I think you even have some wiggle room in there. Probably an extra $100 going on. So,
all right, he has a Yamaha RX V775 7-channel receiver, which is not Atmos capable and does not have HDCP 2.2. But he intends to stick with regular Blu-rays and Netflix for now, so that's okay. He's got a pair of Ascend Acoustics CR2 speakers with an SVS PC 2000 sub. If his budget allows, he'd like to add a pair of surround speakers to make a 4.1 system. Which speakers would we recommend? Well, I mean, I think there's no reason not to stick with Ascend in this case.
oh sure,
With those HTM ones.
yeah, the HTM 200 SEs, they would definitely fit the bill here,
and they'd be perfectly. It'd be something that you could buy more of later on if you wanted to expand.
Definitely. Yeah, if you ever went to Atmos or whatever, they would absolutely make great ones there. You could go with Focal Little Birds.
Yeah,
those actually match sound wise with the Ascend speakers very nicely, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, whatever works. But I go with one of those two.
They are what?
The HTMs are $300 a pair.
Well, then you're done.
That's right.
That's it.
It all fits. Look at that.
Yeah.
Aren't you happy you asked?
Jim. How much time we have left? Jim has backed up his DVD collection and uses Plex for playback. Before pressing play, you can look at a preview screen that shows the poster art and a synopsis and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
That preview screen also includes some audio-video details about the file you're about to play. He knows that for some of his DVD backups, the resolution file is listed as 480i, while for others it's 40p. Why is that the case? Every single one of his Blu-ray backups is listed as 1080p. I mean, are some Blu-rays in 480i?
Yes, some are.
Not Blu-rays, but DVDs are in 480i.
DVDs, yeah. So some are, yeah.
It depends on when you bought them, I suppose. There you go.
Yeah, well, particularly, so most of the ones that said enhanced for widescreen, which is the vast majority of DVDs, those were usually all 480p. But the actual format stored on a DVD was interlaced. That's why progressive scan DVD players were a thing.
Right.
Because they were stored in a way where you could put it back together into a progressive scan image flawlessly if you had the processing to do it.
Right.
But it came out when standard definition was the thing, and all standard definition televisions used interlacing. That's just what they did.
Well, this is funny because it kind of ties back into what we were saying before about Atmos. You know, when a new technology comes out, it's not always implemented exactly the way that you think it should be. I mean, why not have your discs in progressive? You know, and if
remember enhanced definition. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's what 480p was enhanced definitions. There were enhanced definition TVs that were progressive scan, and then we got progressive scan DVD players. But so it's probably some of your earliest DVDs. Those are probably the ones that are 480i. Also, any of the DVDs that were in a 4:3 format, which is like television shows. You're like, what would be in 4:3? But remember, we had TV shows on DVD, and TV was 4:3 back then.
Right.
Those were all 480i. So,
all right, Patrick. Patrick discovered the AV Rant when the home theater geeks got canceled. I'm sorry about the home theater geeks getting canceled, but I'm not sorry that you're here. And now he's listened to every episode available. I am extremely sorry that you had to do that.
We did not force this upon Patrick.
Hours and hours of us droning on.
This was his own volition. That we did not do anything
did email
to force
me directly,
him to do this.
and he said to confirm he got it back as far as episode 223. We're on like almost 100 now. And then all the episodes earlier than that are unavailable. So we must have originally been hosting the files on our website itself rather than Libsyn up through episode 222. Is that correct? Is there a way for him to get those first 222 episodes? No, I know. I mean, there is. You have to come to my house and you have to make a copy of the DVDs. I just burned off of my computer. I did this yesterday or the day before. 2.5 years of AV Rant podcast off of my computer. I have a terabyte drive on this thing. I got real super lazy, and I have not been backing things up. So I had just backed up 2.5 years of AV Rant podcast and put them on DVDs. I have an entire. I could actually show you guys an entire like case of DVDs that's nothing but AV Rants.
Is it conceivable you could burn DVDs for him and ship them to him?
Maybe it's conceivable
for a price.
I mean, it's conceivable. I just don't know.
Or heck, put them on a USB stick and ship that to him.
Really, that would be a lot easier.
It would
Have
be
to
a
put
lot
the discs
easier.
in and then drop them, because basically the discs have the early ones have a WAV file and the MP3.
Okay.
The newer ones have a FLAC file in the MP3.
Yeah.
So I have both versions of it, so I don't have to. So I'd have to go through and manually grab all the MP3s and then dump them on there. I guess if I got like one of those big old things and I spent way too much of my free time doing it, it's theoretically possible.
But as far as an easily online accessible version, no.
I'm surprised that we're only back to 222. I'm going to actually check this. Libsyn. All right. So I'm because I thought that I don't think we had 200 episodes of this podcast on. I didn't think we made it through 100 before Clint.
You know what? If he's gone back, dug back through our website, which is not the easiest thing to navigate, although I guess you can just search for episode titles. But if he's dug back and he got back as far as 222 and then they all went away, I am inclined to believe him. I haven't done that. I don't know. I wasn't on this podcast back then. That's good news for him.
517. I want to go to page 52. 52. No. 52. Page 52. I'm doing this. This is live. This is
riveting
podcasting.
Yep.
Is what's happening right now. Go. I did. Oh no, 52 is got.
You're actually gonna do this. I guess you're into it now.
I'm doing it now. Okay.
These are all. Can't stop now.
Can't stop now. These are all.
Should I just start Greg's question, because you're going to be a while?
I'm not going to be a while. I just got to get past our first marriage ones, because I used to have another podcast with my wife called Our First Marriage, which is on Libsyn, but not anyplace else. What is that? It says how. I don't know what that one is. That was weird.
I don't even remember what was happening back at 222. Was that still Dina, or was Liz on by then?
It would have been Dina. I mean,
was it still Dina?
I would think so.
I'm not sure. So. That's probably more than 5 years in, because you were pretty good about doing every single week.
We did twice a week for a bit.
There was that, wasn't there? There was that time.
Yeah.
Those podcasts are a lot shorter. It'll be much faster to go through the first 222.
Than
the last 222. The last.
Oh, wait, there we go. I got there.
Finally.
Here we go. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go.
Yeah. No, you don't. You lied. This is horrible. This is the worst segment we've ever done.
All right, here we go. The 2011. Okay, so 2011, 5/12/2011.
Yes,
that's the first podcast that's on there.
What number is it?
I don't know.
That was the whole point.
Oh, a second. I gotta check it out.
Terrible. Who cares what the date was?
Well, that's what I wanted to know. Which one it was. I'm gonna press play. There you go. Can I listen to it?
But we don't tell our episode numbers.
No.
What is that?
It's not on there. I'm sorry, it's not on there. I mean, I can't tell you. Okay, it's got that music.
Why can't you see what episode did you have? We put a post. We put the episode numbers all the way back then.
Oh, that's got Clint on it. How the heck am I supposed to know that? Okay, why would Clint be on there? Let me press this one.
He only did that like 3 or 4 times. Was Clint ever on this podcast? Why are you pressing play? It's not going to tell you the episode number.
I know, but I want to know who's on here.
What? That's not the question that's being asked.
All right, now I've lost the plot.
It's exasperating.
All right, it's only a. Oh man, no, I think it must be you. All right, we're going on, Greg. I'll figure it out later. Greg is currently using a JVC RS46 projector, which is a little bit older model that is a 1080p and uses HDMI 1.4, whatever. He found a retailer selling B-stock JVC X570 units for around $2,000. Would that be a worthwhile upgrade? He is in a dedicated theater, completely light controlled, and the screen is acoustically transparent 120-inch silver ticket, and his main source is an Apple TV 4K. So he's got a JVC RS46, and this is a JVC X570 unit.
Correct.
Is this a worthwhile upgrade, Rob?
I would say yes. That's my inclination. At $2,000, great price point. So the X570 has now been replaced by the X590. The 590 is the current model. And there was no 580 in between. Don't worry about that. 570 and 590 were only 1 year apart. The 570 does have the nice feature where it automatically detects an HDR signal, because the unit previous to the 570 was the 550, and the 550 could do HDR, but you had to manually put it into HDR mode. The 570 automatically detects HDR signals and automatically puts itself into its HDR mode. So you're getting 4K compatibility. It's the Wobble K, but you're getting 4K compatibility. You're getting automatic HDR mode. And it is higher contrast than your older RS46. So for $2,000, if that's affordable to you, I think that's a terrific deal. What's the current prices on the 590s? They're hovering around $3,000 or so. So yeah, I think that's a good deal. I think it'd be worthwhile if $2,000 is reasonable to you. I know you're already looking stuff up because
I am not. I'm still trying to figure out this podcast.
That's what I was saying. I know that's what you're looking up.
I am.
Also, he says he has an Apple TV 4K, so you've got an HDR source. So yeah, that could be worthwhile.
All right, there you go.
I kind of wish those acoustically transparent silver tickets were still around, but they're not. Lots of stuff has gone away from silver ticket. They're like fixed frame white screens. That's what we sell now. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, the search function is not working right on our website, which
that's saying our website is a horrible place to search for things.
I don't understand. It just recently broke, though. I didn't break it. It just recently changed. Lee Overstreet, who you know from this podcast, friend of the podcast, but not a friend of Subwoofers. Lee ordered an OLED, a 65-inch B7A to be exact. Now, read his mind. Is he going to be happy? Is he going to have burn-in, vertical banding, blockiness in dark rays? He used a plasma for many, many years and never had a trace of burn-in with the way he had it set up and used. So his OLED will be fine, right? He's going to be fine, right? This is what I predict. He's going to have the settings all weird, and it's going to be way too bright, and he's going to think it looks weird, and then he's going to call us, and then Rob's going to fix it.
You think he's going to be like Gary and not like what he sees?
I do think that. I think that's going to happen at first there. But I think
I don't think that. I think you're going to be over the moon, Lee. I think you're going to love this set. So this is for Lee and for everybody else. So first thing you do, it has an automatic little setup thing that you go through to get it connected to the internet and connected to its remote, because the remote has a little pointer function like a Wii remote does. So there's some setup stuff to do. But first thing after all that is done, go to whatever source you're going to use, because it does remember which picture mode you're using based on each input and each source. It's a little bit of a quibble I have. I wish there was a way to just be like, use this one picture mode all the time, regardless of what I'm watching. But if you go to Netflix, you'll have to set the picture mode. If you go to YouTube, you'll have to set the picture mode again. When you go to HDMI 1, you'll have to set the picture mode again. So choose something, set your picture mode to ISF dark room. Start with that.
Right.
Even the ISF darkroom, the OLED light setting is too high. There is no preset where the OLED light setting is low enough, in my opinion. But bring it down to about 35, because at 35, the automatic brightness limiter doesn't do anything anymore because it doesn't need to. So set the OLED light to about 35. If that's too bright, it's fine to go lower, but I wouldn't set it much higher than that. But there you go. That's the first two settings. Now, the only thing I would say, and I already warned Lee about this, but for everyone else too, I do recommend, if you're buying an OLED TV, even if it's one of the brand new C8s, do buy it from somewhere where you can return it, because there is this vertical banding issue in the dark grays. My OLED has it. I couldn't return it because I bought a refurbished unit and all that kind of stuff, and it's not so bad that it really, really bothers me, but I do have some vertical banding in the dark grays that are enough that I do occasionally spot them during actual content. So ideally, I would have returned that set and got a new one, but I'm like, it's not bad enough that I am going to go through all that. But do check it. So easy way to do it is on YouTube. You can just look for a 5% gray whole screen and a 10% gray whole screen, and you just kind of look at that and go by your first blush reaction. Because if your first blush reaction is, I don't see any problems, good, that's great, you're done.
Turn it off.
You don't have to return it.
Turn it off right now.
If you examine any OLED TV at a 10% or a 5% gray and you examine it closely, you will see some little vertical bands in there. It's unavoidable. They all have it. But your first blush reaction. Now, if you turn it on and you're like, hey, look at that band, that kind of looks bad, send it back. Get another one, because it is entirely a unit-to-unit variation, and the majority of them, Like 80% of them have that first reaction where like there's absolutely nothing wrong with this, and if I examine it really closely, I can make out some. But like 20% of them do have bands on them that you're like, I can clearly see a vertical band on a gray screen. So send that back, get one of the 80%. Simple as that. The other stuff, if you had no problems with the plasma, you won't have any problems with the OLED. Like I say, turn the OLED light setting down to 35 or lower than that, and you're good. You're good. You're going to be happy, Lee.
I wouldn't worry about burning or any of that nonsense. If you know how to take care of a TV, you'll be fine as long as you're not abusing it. Speaking of abusing a TV, I was going to use, I have like extra wide 21:9 monitor that I got from AOC a while back for review. And I love that monitor. I've been using that on my computer forever. And I was planning on putting that with the gaming computer. Yeah. And recently I asked you for a new monitor for the gaming computer. Yeah. The reason is because my wife spilled wine on it. And now it's got a blue line and the green line going up the right side of the thing.
Oh,
and I'm like so irritated.
You of all people uses a 21:9 monitor. After all the stuff we talk about with projection screens, and you're always getting 16:9.
Oh, I love that thing. I love it because I can snap a 4:3 to one side, a 4:3 to the other, and I can read both things at the same time. Yeah. That's why I love it. Absolutely.
Of all people, you have.
I love having dual monitors when you're using a computer. I mean,
that's true.
It just makes so much easier. Okay, so for the den, Lee wants a new TV that will allow him to share the signal with his OLED in the living room. The new 2018 Vizio E-Series says it supports Dolby Vision and HDR10, and the 43-inch model is only $350, and that size would be fine. So is that the best choice? I think our best choices these days are TLC.
TCL.
That's what I said.
But I mean, here at this, so the 43-inch size, there is no full of, well, the E-Series technically has full array lighting, but it's 2 zones.
That's one half.
I don't really consider that local dimming. 2 zones. Whereas the one that's at this price point and this size, 43-inch size from TCL, it would be their 5 series, would be the S515, and it's also $350. So, but it's edge lit. So price is the same. They both do Dolby Vision. I mean, so how expensive could Dolby Vision really be? Because they're putting it in $350 TVs, both of these companies. Right. So to me, it really boils down to, would you prefer to have Roku built in or Chromecast built in? Because the TCL has Roku built in and the Vizio has Chromecast built in. Other than that, I mean, I really wouldn't give the edge in picture quality to one or the other. They're really about the same there. And they both do Dolby Vision, so you can do the thing where both your OLED and this TV could be connected to the same video source, and there'll be no problem. They all talk the same language.
So he needs a new AV receiver as well. It's unlikely he'll go beyond 5.1. Yeah, he's pretending he has a subwoofer that he does not honestly have. Nor will he buy, no matter what I say.
That's right.
He needs a new AV receiver, too. It's unlikely. Oh, I already said that. But he clearly wants to handle all the new 4K and HDR stuff. Plus, he wants to be able to use it to send his sources to both the living room and the den. And he'd love to be able to tweak the bass to his liking. No, what bass? You got none, son.
You can still tweak the bass output. You set it to 5.0, it all gets sent.
Choice. 34, is it 34 now?
33? That'd be the easy to find, currently available model that allows you to send a different source to both zones at the same time, which I think he wants to do.
3 or 3400, whichever one you can.
Yeah, find. The X3300 or the X3400. It is getting pretty hard to find the 33, but you can still.
Yeah. Got a lot more channels than you need, but it's got the multi-Q XC32 with sub EQ.
It does. It also has a full set of pre-outs if he ever wants to add amplification. Maybe he just wants to keep using those Yamaha towers and he wants big amps to drive those 15-inch drivers. He's got the full pre-outs.
I am going to come to his house and I am going to break those speakers.
But the big feature is the two.
I'm breaking your speakers.
The 2 HDMI outputs that are independent HDMI outputs. That's kind of what you need for what you want to do. So you got to step up to that model, and you can use the Odyssey editor app to tweak the sound, although Tom was having difficulty with his, but you can do it.
Yeah. By the way, the podcast that we were listening to, that one was number 232. It's called Star Wars Roast. It was the earliest one on there that I could find.
Oh.
And it was with Liz.
Well, maybe the numbers were transposed because he said 223, but maybe it was 232.
It's 232, according to Liz. But maybe I transposed it somehow. I don't know. Anywho, I messed it up. Yeah, no, it's 232.
Okay.
So, Joseph, this is our last one for today. Joseph, last week we talked about Joseph's computer, the NVIDIA GTX 1050 graphics card connected to his LG B7 OLED and how he was getting stuttery when he tried to send a 4K resolution. Rob made some suggestions for changing the input settings on this OLED and possibly changing the frame rate setting on his PC, and that did the trick.
Yay!
He's now getting 4K and HDR playback via Plex now. And for anyone else who might be having choppy playback while using Plex on an LG OLED, Jim wrote to say that he was having that issue until he turned off True Motion. So look for that, set it to off. He was also using the recommended settings of True Motion set to user, but then having both sliders, dejutter and deblur, set to 0 so there wouldn't be any soap opera effect, but that resulted in choppiness until he set the True Motion to off completely. So
all right. It's certainly worth a try. That's a setting inside of your TV. So
this question comes from Joseph, but that suggestion came from Jim. So don't get confused.
Right. But they were very related, so put them together there.
Two different people. So for Joseph, he now has a new issue. Joseph has a Yamaha RXA 3050 receiver, and he can't seem to get HDMI ARC to work. He followed the instructions and turned on HDMI CEC both in his Yamaha and his B7 OLED, but no dice. Not only that, with his Yamaha's ARC HDMI output plugged into his LG's ARC HDMI input, he can't even get Yamaha's on-screen menu to show up. So in these suggestions, the forum and Google have been no help. No, I got nothing.
So I'll address the video side first, because we know he was trying to get his computer graphics card to output 4K and HDR to his television.
Right.
So to do that, he would have had to have turned on the HDMI deep color for the HDMI input he was using, and he would have had to have set that input under the input settings to the PC icon, so that it can accept the full 444 signal. That's
what we said last week to do.
And that was the thing that fixed his playback problem in his video, so that's good. The downside of that is the on-screen menu output of the Yamaha is one of the things that isn't compatible when you've activated HDMI deep color on that input.
That makes sense, actually, to be honest with you.
That's one of those things where you have to have turned off the HDMI deep color to send the on-screen menu out of the AV receiver. So unfortunately, if you've plugged the computer into the Yamaha and then the Yamaha into the TV, this creates a problem.
Right.
Because obviously that's going to be plugged into the one input that needs to be set to HDMI deep color and 444 for the computer to work, but then your on-screen menu doesn't work. I suppose you could use the second HDMI output, because the A3050 most definitely has.
Right.
It has 3 HDMI outputs. So you can use one of the other HDMI outputs to go to a different input on the LG and use that just for your on-screen menu, I guess. Kind of silly, but it'll still function. And
it's close by. It's not a long cable.
That's right. And on that second HDMI input, you'd want to make sure you keep the HDMI deep color off. And then you'll get your on-screen menu back. Now, for the audio return channel, I had a bit of an issue getting this to work on my Marantz, so I don't have a Yamaha to test it directly with, but I don't imagine it's worlds apart. Because, you first go in and you go into your television, and you tell your television that the sound output, so there's the sound menu, and you tell it that the sound output is going to be HDMI audio return channel. That seems straightforward enough. When you do that, it will automatically change some other settings behind the scenes that are only accessible if you go to the LG's general settings menu.
Sure, why not? That's where I would.
And everything in the general settings menu is named very strangely. So off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't even recall what the thing was called. But you go through all there because there's HDMI settings and there's output settings and there's to update the firmware, you have to go to about this TV because they couldn't just put firmware somewhere in the menu. So yeah, there's stupid look through everything in that general menu because there's a thing in there that activates HDMI CEC when you turn on audio return channel, and that does need to be active. But then there's also a separate HDMI CEC power setting, which is do you turn everything connected to this device on and off when the TV turns on and off? And by default, that gets set to on, and you want it off.
Why would that have any bearing on any of the things?
Because, in the case of my Marantz, if it was on, they got these weird conflicting things because the Marantz also tries to turn on the TV, you see?
Right. So they're both trying to turn each other on. Sounds like a good time. They just need a couple of drinks to get along.
You'd think. But you really want to kind of turn that off. So the thing that's like the automatic power on off thing, and you got to dig through the general menu to find you want to turn that sucker off. Once I did that, mine seemed to work. But there was one more wrinkle, which was that obviously what you want to do is, let's say you're watching Netflix and you're using the Netflix app that's built into the OLED.
Sure.
Because that's the way you can get both Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. I'm assuming that's what he wants to do. And you have to use the audio return channel to do that. So you go to Netflix and you want your receiver to then automatically go to the audio return channel input. Yes? That would make sense. Well, that's what it does. That's fine. And then it stays there. Even if you go to an HDMI input, like you tell your receiver to go back to your Blu-ray player or whatever, still stuck on the TV's audio until you press the actual like input button on your AV receiver. At least it was in the case of my Marantz. So yeah, the audio return channel and HDMI CEC are a bag of hurt, but I think it's that power setting because it was in my case. And by default, it's turned on and it doesn't work. So there you go.
So what you're basically telling me, from what I can glean from this conversation, is that we should all just wait until the Dolby Atmos and everything works on everybody else's apps so we can stop having to use the LG built-in app, because that is just suck.
Yeah, I mean, the enhanced audio return channel is supposed to be separate from CEC because, surprise, surprise, integrators don't like it this way. You think that results in a few phone calls to integrators when they're trying to do this crap?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. This sounds like I'll be honest with you, it sounds like an absolute nightmare. So, yes.
But you won't be able to upgrade to enhanced audio return channel with any of the gear you mentioned, so that's not really a solution. Yeah. No. Fun times.
Thank you, HDMI. You've just made everything so much better. May I have
So
another?
easy. I'll just plug it into a soundbar.
It's a single cable solution. Your life is going to be perfect.
Yeah. You have sold us a bag of goods, sir. Do not appreciate it. All right, that's the last. What else we got? Who's next? Who's for next week?
Oh, yeah. I already did the scrolling thing. How dumb am I? We got Aiden. Aiden is left. And then we also got a question from Marlon, but that came in like late last night or early this morning. So you're on the list for next week.
All right. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Zachary for going to www.avrant.com and clicking the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and leaving us a PayPal donation. Thank you very much, Zachary.
Yeah, Zachary, thank you for the donation.
Thank you to our 61 patrons over at Patreon. They are leaving us a monthly donation that's being taken from them, given to Patreon, and a portion of it's given to us. And all that money goes into our coffers to help pay for our hosting fees and all the other things that we pay for. So thank you, patrons.
Yeah, that's patreon.com/AVRant Podcast. And thanks so much to our 61 patrons.
I want to thank Nathan for talking us up to Power Sound Audio, and Jason for mentioning us in his review on the SVS website, as well as Chris for his Istion Hub giveaway.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Chris. If you'd like to win that Istion Hub, email Tom at avrant.com. Tell him why you want the thing.
There you go.
June 30th, right? June 30th is the cutoff date for that.
Midnight, my time.
There you go. Date has to say June 30th on Tom's email.
That's right, on my email. I get it. All right. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.